Hey yo, welcome back to 10-5 Plays. So with Breath of the Wild sequel on the way, I thought I'd get into some things that could, I guess, hold back the game's greatness. Now, I really have zero worries about this game personally, but I've seen some people online with some worries and I wanted to look at them realistically and why I think each point really isn't anything to worry about. So sit back, relax, check out this video, baby. Now, I've seen some concerns about this game being underwhelming. The second E3 trailer had some people convinced that this game would just be Breath of the Wild's map with some changes to it. You know, they see familiar locations and they figure they're just getting a small update for the game that we already played. Now, I could definitely see how this would be disappointing. It would hurt the game even more considering how much exploration played into the first game. Even with the sky and cave system, if the overworld is literally the same one from Breath of the Wild, yeah, it could hurt the game a bit. Now, I admit that this crossed my mind briefly because I saw it so much online, but you know, I can see they're being very selective of what they've shown and what they've said. You know what I'm saying? They won't even reveal the name of the game yet. You know, comparing the development time to the first game, it's pretty clear that we're in for something special. You know what I mean? A game like Red Dead Redemption 2 had you in places you've been before and it works so well, you know, so I wouldn't really mind getting an update like that, you know, even though it had new areas as well. However, this isn't a generation hopping game. You know, Red Dead came out on what, the 360? Next game, it was a different ballpark, so I know it's not really the same thing, but I'm actually really hyped to see what they come up with to keep it fresh. So ever since the first teaser of the game, fans have been clamoring for a playable Zelda. You know, in the time between the first trailer and the second, we had enough time to convince ourselves, or yourselves, that Zelda needs to have a different role in the game. And once that new trailer came out and Zelda dropped down that hole, boy, people went crazy. People think she's gonna fall into the same old trope of her being kidnapped or trapped or something needing to be saved and gone for all of the game. And you know what? People are tired of that. And you know what? I don't blame them. I don't think Zelda will fall down that hole and be gone for the game. Looking at both trailers, you know, I kind of believe that Link goes in to catch her and that hand comes down and saves Link. So I'm also not a diehard we need a playable Zelda guy at all. But I do get not wanting her to be in that role again. I'm sure if they do something where, you know, they're separated and she's actually accomplishing things even off screen, I'd be fine. But they showed her the way they did for a reason. They want us to speculate, and that lets me know that they have plans for her that they don't really want us to know yet. There were some areas in the first game that struggled a little bit to run. So adding on to that can only mean the game will have lower resolutions and lower frame rates and make it a subpar experience. You know, I can see how that would hinder the game, obviously. I just don't think it'll be a problem. You know, this is a Nintendo first party game. They aren't perfect, but they're amazing. You know, you have a game like Link's Awakening and you had those areas where, you know, the frame rate dipped or whatever, and people did act like it was the end of the world, you know, trying to use it as a criticism, but for everyone else, we didn't care. The game was fantastic. This game is being built for this system alone. So I don't really have worries that they're gonna drop the ball and release a game this massive running like shit. I'm sure we'll have some frame rate dips, you know, here and there, but I highly doubt it will be anything like Hyrule Warriors. Alright, we finished Breath of the Wild with the Master Sword, a ton of outfits, a variety of swords, shields, champions' abilities, food, whatever. So at the beginning of this game, either we lose it all somehow, or we start the game in a godlike state, both ways hurting the game as a result. Alright, I can understand this one on a surface level. Let's start with the weapons. People are already feeling some type of way about losing their inventory. Not to mention the whole weapon break system and, you know, that whole thing. But I don't think either way people are going to either accept it or not. You know, they're just going to roll with it. So when it comes to the whole inventory thing, For me, I'm fine with it. In universe, the weapons break. Link switches weapons how many times in Breath of the Wild? How many times have you switched weapons? So in the time between games, he probably went through so many weapons and whatnot, he decided to stick with what worked. Or maybe he just stuck with the Master Sword because he didn't need anything else. I wouldn't mind starting with the Master Sword alone, or at least being acknowledged before something happens to it, since we saw in the trailer that he had it already. We see Link with different swords, shields, and bows in the game trailer, so we know that mechanic is returning. So I don't think weapons not carrying over will hurt anything. And if it did, we'd definitely be in God mode, at least for a while. These weapons still break and leave you with what's available. So I think if they went this route, they could just have it in the hard mode, instead of having it as DLC, have it start off. You want to bring over your progress like that from the previous game, you instantly go into a harder mode where the enemies are leveled up to match those weapons. The clothes for me can go either way. They can either stay in your inventory, that would be nice, or they can go. But if they went, I like it so that they just didn't cut it anymore. There may be more to do in the water, needing the Zora armor not up to par anymore. Maybe Link will have to go into some lava, making, the heat suit obsolete. Maybe these tools will be more than items for sale in the store, like the cold resistant gear. Who knows? I want to see an advancement of these things, and I want to see every aspect of the previous game take a decent step forward. Alright, ignoring Link's new abilities, some people feel like the experience will be too similar to the first game. They feel they see so much familiar with the first game in these trailers that this one will be too similar. They saw that there's the same Hyrule Castle, the same enemies with some changes, similar weapons, items, and mechanics, Hyrule. They feel like it will just be Breath of the Wild 2.0, kind of like the next version of the latest smartphone. Now, me, I don't have this worry, but I can definitely see people having that fear from, what they got from those trailers. Especially with how good the first game did some things, However, I don't expect this to be just an upgraded version of the first game. We only got a really small taste, and we got to see enemies working together in new ways. I take that as not a new type of enemy, but a way that different enemy types can use each other against you. We saw new enemies all together. Link using new mechanics all together. Yeah, they showed very little, but they let us know they haven't scratched the surface yet. You know what? I'm glad for that. There are games that switch locations all the time and basically kept the same exact mechanics, with a small change here and there, and they're massive beloved franchises, Not that I think Zelda would go this route, because that's just not really their style, but I'm just saying it isn't the end of the world. There's so much being new added into the franchise as a whole with this game, and refreshing ideas not only from Breath of the Wild, but from past Zelda games too. This honestly, not feeling like a new experience is the last thing I'm worried about with this. Alright, I think that's about it for now. If you have worries about this game, I would love to hear them, so definitely drop some comments below. 2022 is a big year. It could be a Breath of the Wild sequel versus God of War Ragnarok for Game of the Year, so that's definitely going to be interesting. Breath of the Wild was a massive game. It did a lot different. There are a lot of things that people miss or wish was in it, but me as a player, I really love and appreciate that game and what it brought to the Zelda franchise as a whole. I definitely see all the hopes and dreams for what the potential of this game could be. There's a huge list now that can make people like, oh, kind of like if Breath of the Wild came out and it was linear like Skyward Sword, people would have been pissed off. So I can get how expectations can lead to real world disappointment. Like, people can actually be really disappointed by this and it can affect the game. I just don't think it's going to be that way. I have the absolute highest hopes for Breath of the Wild sequel. Hope we hear more about it soon. You know what I mean? Thank y'all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm going to catch y'all on the next one, alright? Peace.